Welcome to Vietnam War Exposed, where today we uncover the legendary partnership between Australia and New Zealand in the deep jungle. This story is about a bond forged in blood, creating the deadliest reconnaissance pairing ever seen during the Vietnam War conflict. In the dense forests of Phuoc Tuy province, a unique military experiment was taking place that would change Special Forces history. The ANZAC tradition began long before Vietnam, forged in the fires of Gallipoli, where a brotherhood was born under heavy fire. It was not just a political treaty, but a deep connection that bound these two nations together through generations of sacrifice. The Australians brought systematic reconnaissance methods, advanced communication technology, and precise firepower coordination to the chaotic battlefields of the South. Their counterparts from New Zealand brought something different, an almost spiritual ability to read the jungle and track silent enemies. When they united at the Nui Dat base, they formed a hybrid force that was far greater than the sum of parts. The jungle was a terrifying place for many, but for these elite warriors, it became their home and their greatest weapon. Among the New Zealanders were Māori warriors who carried ancient tracking skills passed down through their ancestors for centuries of warfare. They could spot a broken twig or a disturbed leaf from yards away, reading the environment like an open history book. The Australians complemented this with their rigid discipline and ability to call in devastating artillery support with pinpoint accuracy. Insertion into the combat zone was always a tense moment, marking the beginning of missions that could last for weeks. They moved in small teams, usually 5 or 6 men, relying on stealth rather than firepower to survive behind enemy lines. The point man had the most dangerous job, leading the patrol into the unknown where every step could be his last. The North Vietnamese Army began to whisper about these soldiers, calling them ghosts who appeared from nowhere and vanished without trace. Captured documents later revealed the enemy called them the Red Gods, fearing their supernatural ability to strike and then disappear. Despite the danger, a unique culture developed between the two groups, a blend of dry Australian humor and Maori warrior spirit. Their tactic was simple yet effective. Make contact, inflict maximum damage, and withdraw before the enemy could organize a counterattack. The monsoon rains brought misery and rot, but they also provided cover, masking the sound of their movement through the bush. Booby traps were a constant threat, requiring nerves of steel and steady hands to neutralize without alerting the nearby enemy forces. In the darkness of the jungle night, the trust between an Australian and a New Zealander was the only safety available. Their primary mission was intelligence gathering, finding the enemy base camps that were invisible to the high-flying American reconnaissance planes. Communication was their lifeline, and the Australian signalers were experts at maintaining contact even in the most difficult atmospheric conditions. They often modified their weapons and gear, favoring reliability and silence over standard-issue equipment provided by the regular Army supply. Every detail mattered, from the taping of dog tags to silence them, to the darkening of boots to avoid reflection. Cross-training was essential, with Australians learning tracking from Kiwis and Kiwis learning advanced radio procedures from their Australian mates. The motto, "Who dares wins," applied to both, driving them to take risks that regular infantry units would never even consider.
All green. All right, let's get these
But the true test of this partnership came in August 1968, during a mission known as Operation Southern Cross. The objective was audacious: infiltrate 60 kilometers behind enemy lines to locate a major supply route used by the communists. A mixed team of 6 men was selected, knowing they would be operating without any hope of resupply for weeks. They departed as the sun set, flying into the gathering darkness, leaving the safety of the world they knew behind them. Below them lay thousands of square miles of hostile territory, occupied by an enemy that knew the terrain perfectly well. The insertion was fast and brutal, the team hitting the ground and vanishing into the scrub before the rotor noise faded. For the first hour, they did not move a muscle, listening for any sign that their arrival had been detected. The terrain was unforgiving, with swollen rivers and steep muddy slopes that tested their physical endurance to the absolute limit. They used a rolling gait, placing the outside of the boot down first to minimize the sound of crunching leaves. The lead scout noticed a snapped twig at eye level, a sign that someone carrying a heavy load had passed recently. Using this clue, they began to track the enemy force, moving parallel to the trail to avoid potential ambush sites. By the 5th day, fatigue was setting in, but their discipline held firm, driven by the fear of capture
These
or
aren't
death.
just bikes. Look at the size
Rations
of the
were strictly rationed,
This confirms the
and
supply
hunger
route.
became a
We need to
constant
follow it.
companion, sharpening their senses, but draining their physical reserves over time. Leeches and mosquitoes were a plague, but they could not use repellent because the smell would give away their position. Suddenly, they stumbled upon a major discovery: a highway of mud used to transport tons of supplies to the front. They watched from the shadows as columns of enemy porters moved weapons and rice, confirming the intelligence reports were correct. This was the moment they had risked everything for, and the radio operator began the delicate task of sending the coordinates. Back at base, the commanders listened intently as the whisper came through the static, pinpointing the heart of the enemy network. Within minutes, jets were scrambled, carrying a payload destined for the coordinates provided by the 6 men
That
on the
was just the
ground.
warm-up.
The team knew
only
they
half
had to
done.
clear the area
All right, let's move
immediately,
out.
as the coming airstrike would alert every enemy
Pace up.
soldier
They can't be
nearby.
far.
The
scent is
earth
strong
shook
here.
as
Move
the
out.
bombs found their mark, destroying the supply cache and disrupting the enemy logistics for months. They paused only for a second to confirm the hit, knowing that the hardest part of the mission was now beginning. The jungle came alive with angry voices as the enemy launched a massive manhunt to find the spies in their midst. Using their anti-tracking skills, the New Zealanders deployed countermeasures to confuse the dogs and throw the pursuers off the scent. They entered a river and walked upstream for a mile, leaving no physical trail for the enemy trackers to follow. Nature intervened again with a storm that washed away their tracks, providing a cloak of invisibility when they needed it most. Sickness struck one of the men, forcing the team to slow down and carry his gear, testing their loyalty. In these dark moments, they drew strength from their shared warrior culture, remembering the haka performed before they left base. The Australian code of mateship and the Maori tribal loyalty blended perfectly, ensuring that no one would be left
Get
behind.
back. Charge is hot.
By day 20, they were starving, forced to
Fire
scavenge
in the
for
hole.
jungle roots and insects to keep their energy levels up. They located a potential extraction point, but the canopy was too thick for a helicopter to land safely without clearing. They had to make a difficult choice: blow the trees and reveal their position, or continue marching towards a clearing. They chose to march, pushing their bodies beyond the breaking point to reach a natural clearing 5 kilometers away. The enemy was closing in, and sporadic gunfire began to erupt behind them as the pursuit force made contact. A brief but violent firefight broke out, with the ANZACs using superior marksmanship to suppress the enemy before breaking contact. The sound of approaching rotor blades was the sweetest music they had ever heard, signaling that salvation was finally arriving. One by one, they were pulled from the jungle, their emaciated faces showing the toll of 28 days in hell. As they flew back to base, they looked down at the green ocean that had been their home and their prison. Back at Nui Dat, they were greeted as heroes, though they simply saw themselves as men who had done their job. Medals were awarded for Operation Southern Cross, but for these men, the respect of their peers was the only reward. Let us analyze exactly why this partnership worked so well, breaking down the specific skills that each nation contributed. The Australian SASR provided the structural framework, the rigorous standard operating procedures that kept the teams organized and efficient. They were masters of weaponry and equipment, ensuring that every piece of kit was modified for maximum performance in combat. The New Zealanders added the sensory element, the ability to smell the enemy or sense danger before it was visible. Veterans often spoke of the Maori sixth sense, a phenomenon where they would stop a patrol seconds before an ambush, It was this instinct that saved countless lives, turning potential disasters into successful contacts where the ANZACs fired the first shot. Unlike their American allies, who often relied on overwhelming firepower, the ANZACs preferred to be ghosts in the machine. The statistics speak for themselves, with a kill ratio that was among the highest of any unit in the war. But success came at a price, and we must remember those who gave their lives in service of their countries. Off the battlefield, the bond was strengthened through sport, humor, and a shared disdain for unnecessary military bureaucracy. They shared their care packages, their beer, and their stories, creating a family atmosphere thousands of miles from home. Letters from home were precious, but often they could not tell their families the true nature of their dangerous work. They lived with the constant knowledge that any mission could result in a dust-off flight, or worse, a body bag. The jungle itself was a neutral enemy, treating both sides with the same indifference, offering heat, disease, and discomfort. Dehydration was a silent killer, and water discipline was drilled into every recruit before they ever set foot in Vietnam. Foot rot was common, caused by days of walking in wet boots, requiring constant care to prevent serious infection. Every man was trained in advanced first aid, knowing that a medic might not be able to reach them in time. When stealth failed, they relied on heavy weapons like the M60 machine gun to break contact and cover their retreat. The roar of the M60 was often the only thing standing between a patrol and being overrun by a superior force. Smoke grenades were their primary method of signaling to aircraft, marking their location in the chaotic green sea below. For the pilots, that pop of colored smoke was the beacon they looked for, guiding them in for the rescue. At night, artillery flares would turn night into day, casting long, dancing shadows that played tricks on tired eyes. Sleep deprivation caused hallucinations, making it difficult to tell where the nightmare ended and reality began for the sentries. They learned that silence was often louder than noise. When the jungle insects stopped singing, danger was undoubtedly near. They shared the jungle with tigers, snakes, and centipedes, all of which posed a threat equal to the enemy. There were reports of patrols being stalked by tigers, adding a primal fear to the already high-stress environment. When technology failed, they reverted to primitive methods, using signal mirrors and hand signs to communicate across distances. Survival skills were paramount, and the ability to catch fresh food could mean the difference between strength
Verified
and
checkpoint
weakness.
Charlie. Are the coordinates locked?
Navigation was an art form, using compasses, maps, and even the stars to find their way through the canopy. Getting lost was a death sentence, so the navigator was usually the most experienced and trusted man in the patrol. Every mission was planned in minute detail, with extraction points and emergency rendezvous locations memorized by every team member. The moments before departure were filled with quiet reflection, as each man mentally prepared for the task ahead. The pilots flew at treetop level, a dangerous technique known as nap of the earth to stay under radar. Door gunners provided essential cover, spraying the landing zone with lead to keep enemy heads down during insertion. Sometimes they landed in rice paddies, slogging through waist-deep mud while exposed to fire from the tree line. Interactions with locals were tense, as it was impossible to know who was a civilian and who was Viet Cong.
You are safe here.
They also engaged in winning hearts and minds, providing medical aid and food to villagers to build trust. Medical civic action programs were a key part of their strategy, attempting to undermine the enemy's influence in villages. But kindness could not replace caution, as many villages were heavily booby-trapped or monitored by enemy agents. The enemy fought a subterranean war, living in vast tunnel complexes that the ANZACs had to locate and destroy. Going into the tunnels was a job for the brave or the crazy, facing darkness, traps, and close-quarters combat. Down in the dark, technology meant nothing. It was a primal struggle for survival in the suffocating earth. They often used tear gas or explosives to seal the tunnels, denying the enemy their sanctuary and storage areas. The The intelligence gathered from these tunnels provided crucial insights into the enemy's plans and future offensive operations. The synergy between the two nations was seamless, with each knowing instinctively what the other would do in combat. This unity was symbolized by their flags flying together, a reminder that they were two nations fighting as one. When they lost a man, the grief was shared equally, regardless of which side of the Tasman Sea he came from. The haunting notes of the last post served as a farewell to fallen brothers, echoing through the rubber plantations. Decades later, the survivors still speak of that bond with a reverence that time has not diminished. The legacy of the Vietnam reconnaissance teams laid the foundation for modern special forces operations in both countries. Today, the SASR and NZSAS continue to train and fight together, honoring the tradition established in the Vietnamese jungle. As the war dragged on into 1969, the intensity of operations increased, demanding even more from the men. The pace was relentless, with patrols going out back-to-back, leaving little time for rest or recovery. News of anti-war protests back home began to reach them, creating a sense of isolation and betrayal. They realized that they were fighting not for politics, but for the man standing next to them in the line. Major battles like Bin Ba saw them operating alongside tanks and infantry, clearing villages house by house. Their role as forward observers was critical, guiding the heavy firepower of the Centurion tanks onto enemy strongpoints. In the chaos of urban combat, their cool heads and precision fire saved many lives among the regular infantry. When the smoke cleared, the devastation was absolute,
All right, everyone, keep moving.
a stark reminder of the
Right this way
destructive
to the
power
vehicle.
at their disposal.
Watch your step on the
Even in
ramp.
victory, there was sadness, as they witnessed the suffering of the local population caught in the crossfire. But the war did not stop, and soon they were back in the
Keep
green
those
darkness,
rifles up.
hunting and being hunted. The seasons cycled through, bringing more rain, more heat, and more challenges for the weary men on the ground. The enemy adapted too, becoming more cautious and developing counter-tactics to deal with the deadly ANZAC patrols. It became a game of chess, a deadly contest of wits, where one wrong move resulted in a body bag.
Appeared.
Stories of
Taller
their
than any
exploits
tree in
grew
this
into
forest,
legends,
they say.
earning them the nickname Ma Rung, or Phantoms of the Jungle. The winged dagger badge became a symbol of fear for the enemy and a symbol of hope for their allies. By 1971, the political tide had turned, and the order was given to begin the withdrawal of forces. Leaving Nui Dat was a bittersweet moment, leaving behind a place that had defined their lives for so long. As the coastline of Vietnam faded into the distance, they carried with them memories that would never fade. Their return home was often quiet, without parades or fanfare, a stark contrast to the intensity of their service. It took years for their service to be fully recognized, but the bond between the men remained unbroken. Memorials now stand in both countries, and in Vietnam, marking the places where they fought and died together. The jungle has reclaimed the battlefields, covering the scars of war with new growth and peaceful silence. But for the men who were there, the sounds and smells of the jungle remain vivid in their minds. The Australia-New Zealand partnership in Vietnam remains one of the most effective military coalitions in modern history. It taught us that trust and brotherhood can overcome the most hostile environments and the most determined enemies. We honor the Maori warriors and the Australian diggers who stood shoulder to shoulder in the face of danger. Their story is a testament to the enduring spirit of the ANZAC, a legend that will never die. As we look back, we simply say, lest we forget. Their sacrifice ensures our freedom today. Now, let's take a deeper look at the specific tools and weapons that made these missions possible. The L1A1 self-loading rifle was the workhorse, known for its stopping power and ability to punch through heavy foliage. Its 7.62mm round was heavier than the American M16's ammo, offering better range and penetration in the bush. However, scouts often preferred the lighter M16 or XM177 carbine for its speed in close-quarters jungle encounters. The M79 grenade launcher, known as the Blooper, served as the patrol's pocket artillery, breaking up enemy ambushes. For defense, the Claymore mine was indispensable, setting up a wall of steel balls to protect their night locations. Every man carried a mix of fragmentation grenades for fighting and smoke grenades for signaling aircraft during extraction. Uniforms varied, with some favoring the tiger stripe pattern while others stuck to the standard olive drab greens. Personal camouflage was an art, using scrim scarves and face veils to break up the human outline completely. Their rucksacks were incredibly heavy, often weighing over 80 pounds, filled with ammunition, water, and radio batteries. Water was the heaviest item, but the most critical, as running out meant death in the tropical heat. The PRC-25 radio was the team's lifeline, heavy and cumbersome, but essential for calling in fire support. Operators learned to tape down antennas and silence the static to avoid giving away their position to enemy patrols. Beyond weapons, it was their unique tactics that set them apart from the standard American infantry doctrine. They practiced immediate action drills relentlessly, so that reacting to contact became purely instinctive muscle memory. The peel-back maneuver allowed a small team to generate massive firepower while withdrawing safely from a superior force. Prisoner handling was strictly professional, as a live prisoner was an intelligence goldmine compared to a dead body.
Where's the rest of your unit located?
Patience was their greatest virtue.
They moved out yesterday.
They could wait silently for days for a target to walk into their trap. Close target reconnaissance involved crawling right up to the enemy bunkers to gather detailed information and photos. This was the most nerve-wracking task of all, requiring ice-cold nerves and absolute control over one's body. But the war didn't end when they left the jungle. Many carried the psychological scars for decades afterwards. Post-traumatic stress disorder was not well understood then, and many veterans suffered in silence without proper support. Eventually, they found solace in each other, forming associations to fight for better healthcare and recognition. Some even returned to Vietnam years later to meet their former enemies, finding closure and mutual respect. They found a country at peace, moving forward, where the battlefields have been replaced by farms and cities. Vietnamese commanders later admitted they held a special respect for the ANZACs, considering them their most dangerous opponents. It was a war between professionals, where skill was recognized and respected by those on both sides of the line. Preserving this history is vital, not to glorify war, but to understand the human cost of conflict. Future generations must understand the sacrifices made, ensuring that the ANZAC spirit remains relevant in the modern world. The torch has been passed to a new generation of soldiers who walk in the footsteps of giants. Courage, mateship, and sacrifice are not just words. They are the values that define the ANZAC experience in Vietnam. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the past, honoring the men who fought in the shadows. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please like the video and subscribe to our channel for more history documentaries. Check out our other videos covering the Battle of Long Tan and other key moments of the Vietnam War. From the jungle to the sea, the story of Vietnam is vast and complex, and we are here to tell it. This documentary was researched and produced by a dedicated team committed to historical accuracy and storytelling excellence. We leave you now with the images of the brave men who served. May their stories never be forgotten. Look into their eyes and see the determination, the fear, and the brotherhood that carried them through the fire. They came from cities and farms, from Australia and New Zealand, to do a job that few others could do. We honor their service and their sacrifice, recognizing the heavy price paid by so many young men in their prime. The red poppy remains the symbol of our remembrance, a promise that we will keep their memory alive forever. As General Sherman once said, War is hell. But in that hell, these men found a heaven in their brotherhood. The image of the helicopter against the sunset remains the enduring icon of the Vietnam War for the world. Thank you for watching Vietnam War Exposed. We hope this story has given you a new perspective on history. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we will uncover more secrets from the archives of military history. Click on the video on the left to learn about the tunnel rats, or the right for air cavalry. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload from our dedicated history channel. As a bonus, here is a quick look at the silenced Sterling submachine gun, a favorite for silent sentry removal. This weapon allowed them to take out guards without alerting the rest of the camp, a crucial tool for stealth. They also carried silk maps sewn into their uniforms, which were durable, silent, and could be used for evasion. Emergency beacons were the last resort, a desperate plea for help when all other options had been exhausted. Once again, thank you for your time and attention. We appreciate your support for Vietnam War Exposed channel. A special thanks to our Patreon supporters who make these detailed documentaries possible through their generous monthly contributions. Vietnam War Exposed is dedicated to bringing you the truth, unvarnished and detailed, about the conflicts of the past. The jungle holds many secrets, and we will continue to explore them one by one in our future episodes. Until next time, keep history alive, and remember the lessons learned from the sacrifices of those who served. This has been a production of Vietnam War Exposed. See you in the next video for more history. Remember, every soldier has a story, and every story deserves to be told with respect and accuracy. We light a candle for the fallen, a small light against the encroaching darkness of forgetfulness and time. Lest we forget. Goodbye for now, and stay safe wherever you are in the world today. Here is a brief moment of levity to remind us that even in war, humanity and humor can survive. Moments of joy were rare but cherished, providing a necessary mental break from the horrors of the patrol. Even bad cooking could be a source of laughter, bonding men together through shared hardship and terrible food. Card games were a staple of camp life, with cigarettes or chores often used as the currency for betting. Magazines from home were read until they fell apart, passed from man to man until the pages disintegrated. Music from the radio connected them to the changing world they had left behind, bridging the gap to home. Diaries kept the sanity of many, recording thoughts that could not be spoken aloud to even their closest friends. Routine tasks like polishing boots offered a sense of control and order in a chaotic and unpredictable world. Sleep was the ultimate escape, a few hours where the war did not exist and dreams could take over. Maintaining standards of hygiene helped maintain discipline, preventing the slide into sloppiness that could be dangerous. Physical fitness was not just a requirement, but a survival tool, ensuring they could carry their wounded if needed. Photos of loved ones were carried in helmets and pockets, talismans of love that protected them from despair. Faith played a role for many, offering spiritual armor to go along with their flak jackets and rifles. The rain washed away the dust, but brought the mud, a constant cycle of nature that ignored the war. The beauty of the country was undeniable, a tragic backdrop for the violence that played out every single day. Life continued despite the war, with nature adapting to the presence of men and machines in its midst. This brings us to the true end of our broadcast. Thank you for watching Vietnam War Exposed. Goodbye. Please subscribe and share. History belongs to us all. See you in the next documentary. Signing off now.